Keith, what was it like crossing the Berlin Wall into communist-controlled Germany?
It was a terrible eye opener as to what communism really entails. Um, I don't know how many people understand about Germany at the end of the war, but we had four allies, which was the United States, France, uh, Great Britain, and Russia. And the country of Germany was divided into four sections, and the Russians, of course, had the eastern section, which also had the capital city of Berlin. And being it was the capital city of Berlin, it was wanted to be occupied by the Western Germans also. So the city itself was divided into four sections, just like the country was. So now we have the city of Berlin, but you have to go through East Germany to get there. And as time went on from 1945, when the war was over, until 1961, people could go back and forth between East and West with a little bit of problem. But in little by little, people were escaping from the communist area and wanting to come into the West, and the Russians did not like that, or the communist areas. And so they put a wall along the eastern sector of the country, and then built a wall all the way around the city of Berlin, and on the western city of Berlin. And so people who actually lived in West Berlin couldn't even go 2 blocks on the other side of the wall to visit their families. We had a instrument girl that worked in our hospital in Frankfurt, and she and her family had gone through the wall just about 2 hours before it closed finally, and the wall was closed for 30 years. So they escaped with nothing. They left their home, their cars, their clothes, everything. They didn't even have toothbrushes, but they escaped into West Germany. Well, anyway, you're asking about my experience going into East Germany. I was an officer in the military, and of course I had to go. I got a visa for 12 hours, and I could go into East Germany. And of course I had to go in uniform. And when we got to Checkpoint Charlie, which was the main checkpoint that you could go across the border, it's about 2 blocks wide, and it has machine guns and landmines and dogs and everything. I mean, it's people have died trying to go across it multiple times. But so when we got in the middle of the Checkpoint Charlie, they made everyone that wasn't military get off the bus. They couldn't take me off because of my status, but anyway. And they put mirrors underneath the bus to make sure that people aren't hanging going either direction. West Germany was a happy city. It had sidewalk cafes, there was music and bright lights at night and this type of thing. As soon as we got into East Germany, it was almost silent. Everything was gray. Only a portion of the city had been rebuilt at that time, which was in the 60s or early 70s. And the war was still, you could see the ravages of war around. They showed us, of course, we had a guide with us constantly, and we were not allowed to be out walking around on our own. I made a comment that there were very few cars on the street, and our guard said, well, of course, most people in East Germany have summer homes, and so they're off there. Well, this happened to be on a Wednesday. I was surprised that they were off there, but he said, oh no. And he said, these beautiful apartments, they were about 6 stories high, but we discovered there was no elevators in any of them. And they took us and showed us some of the monuments and things, and there were some beautiful spots in East Germany. But after we were there, I think we were there probably 8 hours or so, and they took us to a little restaurant to eat, and everything was just very, almost primitive. And when we got ready to come back, of course, we got in the middle of Checkpoint Charlie, and everybody had to get off of the bus again except myself. And they ran the mirrors under to make sure and lifted the hood, made sure there was nobody being smuggled across. And when we looked out on the east side, we saw a lady standing on her porch, and then a lady on the west standing on her porch. And you could tell they were looking at each other, but they didn't wave, they didn't nod, they didn't do anything. And I've often wondered if that was a family that had been divided when the wall was closed. And they would just every day at a certain time go out and just look at each other. We got back into West Berlin, and there was music in the streets, and the people were happy and singing. And you ask about my experience with communism. That particular one was a very sad day and a very happy day on the other side. But even at that time, the people in West Germany could not go across the border, could not keep in contact. I think they could mail letters, but they had no phones, and they were not supposed to. People in the East were not supposed to watch anything that had to do with the West. So anyway, it was a day that made me realize what a wonderful thing we have with our freedom, and how wonderful it is, and how proud I was to be an American.